Imagine being one of the world's most talented thieves, escaping from a maximum security prison, only to discover that your biggest problem isn't the police. It's a mysterious group of criminals who have been waiting for you to appear. And before you can figure out who they are, they reveal something even more shocking. They don't want your money, they want your skills. Their target is millions of dollars in gold hidden beneath one of the most heavily guarded prisons in the world, and the man who owns that prison happens to be the same ruthless billionaire who has a personal score to settle with you. This is the story of Richard Pace, a legendary thief whose greatest heist may also become his most dangerous one. Because this time, he's not stealing for himself. He's joining a team of criminals who call themselves the Misfits, a group that believes some things are worth stealing when the people who own them are even worse than the thieves. The movie begins by introducing Richard Pace as a professional thief who is already behind bars. But this isn't an ordinary prisoner. Pace is clever, experienced, and extremely confident in his ability to manipulate security systems. The prison is supposed to be impossible to escape from, yet Pace has already demonstrated that walls and locked doors don't mean much to him. His reputation is so impressive that even the people hunting him understand that keeping him imprisoned is a challenge. Pace eventually makes his move. Instead of relying purely on brute force, he uses deception and careful planning to exploit weaknesses in the prison's security. The escape quickly turns into a high-speed pursuit, with law enforcement desperately trying to stop him before he disappears. But Pace isn't simply running blindly. Every move is calculated. Once outside, Pace gets behind the wheel and turns the escape into a spectacular chase. Police vehicles pursue him through the streets while he demonstrates exactly why he's considered one of the world's best thieves. The chase becomes increasingly chaotic, but Pace manages to stay ahead of his pursuers, just when it looks like he has successfully escaped. However, another group enters the equation. Instead of being captured by the authorities, Pace finds himself intercepted by people who seem to know exactly who he is. And this is where the betrayal story begins. Pace is eventually led toward what appears to be another criminal opportunity. His instincts immediately tell him that something isn't right. He is introduced to an extremely wealthy and mysterious figure known as the Prince. The Prince has a reputation for collecting priceless possessions, including an impressive collection of expensive watches. Pace sees the collection as an opportunity and begins considering how he could steal from him. But Pace soon discovers that he isn't the only person doing the planning. The entire situation has been designed to test him. The Prince knows exactly what Pace is capable of and has deliberately placed him in a situation where his skills can be observed. Pace is introduced to the strange team behind the operation. First is Ringo, the team's energetic and eccentric specialist. He is a master of locks, disguises, and manipulation, and his personality is almost the opposite of Pace's cool professionalism. Then there's Violet, a highly skilled fighter who is capable of handling herself in dangerous situations. Wick specializes in explosives and brings a completely different kind of expertise to the group. Together, they form the Misfits, a team of criminals who don't exactly behave like traditional criminals. Their philosophy is simple. They steal from bad people and redirect the stolen wealth toward people who need it. But Pace isn't convinced. To him, thieves are thieves. The team finally reveals what they actually want from Pace. Their target is a massive supply of gold hidden inside a heavily protected prison in the fictional country of Jazaristan. The gold isn't simply ordinary wealth. According to the Misfits, it is connected to a criminal organization and is being used to finance terrorism. The man controlling the operation is Schultz, a powerful businessman who owns and operates private prisons. Schultz isn't just wealthy. He's ruthless, influential, and extremely dangerous. Worse for Pace, Schultz already knows who he is. Pace learns that Schultz has a personal reason for wanting him captured. Pace has previously escaped from prisons connected to Schultz, humiliating the businessman multiple times. For Schultz, Pace isn't simply another criminal. He's an embarrassment. Every time Pace escaped, he demonstrated that Schultz's supposedly impenetrable prison systems weren't as secure as advertised. So when Schultz discovers that Pace is free again, he immediately begins preparing to hunt him down. This creates a second conflict running alongside the heist. The Misfits need Pace. Schultz wants Pace captured. and Pace now has a personal reason to consider joining the operation. The Misfits explain that the gold is hidden beneath one of Schultz's prisons. The prison is practically designed to make an escape impossible. Security is extremely tight. The gold is stored in a heavily protected location, and getting inside is only half the challenge. They also have to get the gold out. Pace listens carefully. At first, he doesn't want to become part of somebody else's plan. He's accustomed to working alone and trusting himself rather than a group. But the Misfits know something about him that makes their offer difficult to refuse. They know that Pace has a daughter. Her name is Hope. Hope is revealed to be connected to the Misfits. This immediately changes the dynamic. Pace has spent years living as a thief and apparently hasn't been the father he should have been. Now he's confronted with the consequences of that distance. Hope isn't simply another member of the team. She's his daughter, and she's also a capable thief in her own right. Pace realizes that the operation is no longer just about stealing gold. It's also an unexpected opportunity to reconnect with Hope. The team travels toward Abu Dhabi, where their elaborate operation begins taking shape. The Misfits prepare their equipment, identities, disguises, vehicles, and various pieces of technology. Pace studies the operation carefully. He immediately notices weaknesses in the team's plan and begins making suggestions. This is exactly why they recruited him. The Misfits may have specialized talents, but Pace understands something they don't. A successful heist depends on anticipating what can go wrong. And with Schultz actively hunting them, almost everything can go wrong. Meanwhile, Schultz learns more about Pace's movements. He begins assembling his own people to track the Misfits. Schultz doesn't intend to wait for the heist to happen. He wants to catch them before they can reach the gold. This turns the operation into a race. The Misfits must infiltrate the prison, steal the gold, and escape before Schultz can identify their plan. And because Schultz has access to enormous resources, they can't simply overpower him. They have to outsmart him. The Misfits begin infiltrating the prison using false identities and carefully constructed disguises. Each member plays a specific role. The plan depends on creating confusion among the guards while simultaneously gaining access to restricted areas. Ringo's ability to manipulate locks and security systems becomes essential. Wick handles the explosive side of the operation. Violet provides protection. Hope assists with the deception. And Pace acts as the experienced mastermind who keeps everything moving. The group doesn't look like a traditional professional heist crew. That's exactly what makes them effective. One of the most important parts of the plan takes place around the prison's food system. The Misfits need to create a distraction large enough to overwhelm the prison's normal security procedures. They manipulate the kitchen operation and introduce a substance that causes chaos among the prisoners. As people begin becoming sick and confused, the prison staff is forced to respond. The Misfits have successfully created the opening they need. But the more chaos they create, the more difficult it becomes to control the situation. While the prison is distracted, Pace and the others move toward the hidden gold. They eventually reach the secure area where the bars are stored. The sight of the enormous gold reserve confirms that the operation could completely change their lives. But Pace immediately reminds everyone of the obvious problem. Gold is heavy. Stealing it is one thing. Getting it out is something else entirely. The team begins moving the gold while trying to maintain the illusion that everything inside the prison is still under control. The Misfits begin transporting the gold through their carefully prepared escape route. Every second matters. The prison's security forces are becoming increasingly suspicious. Pace continues, improvising whenever something doesn't go according to plan. This is where his experience becomes crucial. He doesn't panic when something changes. Instead, he adjusts. The team finally reaches the point where the gold can be moved out of the prison. But Schultz is getting closer. Schultz's people begin closing in. The villain has correctly determined that something is happening inside the prison. His investigation begins exposing pieces of the Misfits operation. Pace realizes that the team may have underestimated just how quickly Schultz could respond. The operation shifts from a controlled heist into an emergency escape. Now they aren't simply stealing gold. They're running from the man who has been waiting for the opportunity to destroy Pace. The Misfits escape using vehicles and carefully prepared routes. What follows is a frantic pursuit through the desert. The stolen gold has to be transported while the team attempts to stay ahead of Schultz's forces. The chase showcases the group's completely different personalities. Ringo remains unpredictable. Wick is willing to use explosives whenever necessary. Violet relies on her combat abilities. Hope proves she can think under pressure. And Pace continues making decisions that keep everyone alive. As the operation continues, Pace understands more clearly why the Misfits chose this particular target. They aren't interested in becoming rich. They want to prevent Schultz's gold from reaching the people who intend to use it for terrorism. The Misfits see themselves as modern-day Robin Hoods. They break laws, but they believe their actions serve a greater purpose. Pace slowly begins accepting that their motivations aren't entirely different from his own. For the first time, he isn't stealing simply because he can. He's stealing because the target deserves to lose what it has. Just when it appears the team has succeeded, the situation becomes more complicated. The Misfits discover that Schultz has been manipulating events from behind the scenes. The team realizes that they may not have been as far ahead of him as they believed. The team prepares for one final escape. They have the gold, but Schultz still wants it back. The Misfits use their remaining tricks to confuse Schultz's people. Disguises, vehicles, explosives, false identities, and carefully timed distractions all come into play. The operation becomes increasingly chaotic. But that's where the Misfits are at their best. They aren't a perfectly organized machine. They're a collection of unpredictable criminals who somehow work together. The team manages to move the gold away from Schultz's immediate reach. But instead of simply keeping the fortune for themselves, they follow their original objective. The gold is redirected toward people and causes that the Misfits believe deserve it. This confirms that their Robin Hood philosophy wasn't simply a cover story. They genuinely intended to take money from powerful criminals and use it against them. Schultz's carefully constructed empire begins collapsing. The man who believed he could control everyone discovers that his greatest weakness was his arrogance. He underestimated Pace. He underestimated the Misfits. And most importantly, he underestimated how far they were willing to go. Pace has once again escaped one of Schultz's supposedly impossible prisons, but this time he has done it with a team. The film begins revealing the final pieces of the Misfits' plan. What initially appeared to be a straightforward gold robbery was actually much more complicated. The team has been manipulating events from the beginning, ensuring that Schultz's own criminal activities eventually work against him. Pace realizes that he wasn't simply recruited because he was a famous thief. He was recruited because he was exactly the kind of person capable of completing a mission that depended on deception, improvisation, and nerve. The Misfits finally get away with the operation. The gold is no longer under Schultz's control. The team has accomplished what seemed almost impossible: infiltrating a highly secure prison, stealing a fortune in gold, escaping the authorities, and defeating a powerful criminal businessman. For Pace, however, the biggest victory isn't the gold. It's hope. He has finally been given the opportunity to repair a relationship that he neglected for years. With the operation completed, Pace and the Misfits go their separate ways. But the relationship between Pace and the group has changed. He began the story as a solitary thief who trusted nobody. He ends it as part of a team. The Misfits may still be criminals, but they have given Pace something he hasn't had in a long time: a reason to use his skills for something beyond himself.